Hello and welcome to Just One More Casio. Casios are like Pringles. Once you pop, you can't stop. They're not expensive, they make almost guilt-free pickups, I think, and they're just so moreish. It's easy to start with one and quickly end up with 10 or with 20, especially as they launch new models at a ferocious rate. I have got one such brand new Casio on my wrist and on my world map for review today. And the best part is it may be brand new, but it still costs $22 US. Well, I say brand new, it does look rather familiar, which when you think about it a little more deeply is actually a really good thing. Let's flip the camera and have a look at it. I wasn't kidding about the price, by the way. $22 and a handful of cents currently on Amazon.com. You're paying a little bit more than that on eBay, but not a lot more than that on eBay. I'll leave links to both in the description of the video. Not a lot of stock though. That seems to be the pattern with hot new Casio releases. The first installment sells out. You might therefore have to wait for a restock to pick one of these up for yourself. Now, I got this nice new Casio box. Doesn't always come in this box though. The last Casio I bought after this one came in a poly bag, so make sure you check the listing. Let's have a look at what's inside. As I said, looks familiar, doesn't it? Looks a lot like the Casio AE1200, aka the legendary Casio Royale. And it should do because it has the same case, the same pushers, and the same resin band. But also, it looks a lot like the Casio AE1300, and it should do because it has the same case, the same pushers, and the same resin band. It actually has quite a bit more in common with the 1300 though than it does with the 1200. More on that later. Now, I said in the intro that these Casios tend to be moreish. You start off with one and you end up with 10 or 20. Doesn't have to go that way though. If you are on a tight budget and you're looking for one watch that does everything, these are fantastic choices. This one's a good size, good shape, and great set of specifications, including a 10-year battery, 100 meters of water resistance, and a bunch of features. I've recommended this style of Casio to many friends just looking for a simple knockabout watch. Many of them have bought these and all of them are happy. And it's a set of dimensions that will sound very familiar if you have or do own either an AE1200 or an AE1300. Now, at its narrowest, I measure it at 39.5. Not including the metal element of the pushers, it's 41. I'm going to call this at 40. It kind of feels like a 40mm diameter watch. 12.9mm thick, 44.7mm lug to lug. Only 18mm lug width. You're not going to be swapping this one out for NATO's. I've done it before. It doesn't look very good. There are, however, some companies that now manufacture straps for this case shape. It actually flares out of the case at 24, tapers down to just under 18. By the way, as supplied, the weight, not a lot of weight, 40 grams. 100 meters of water resistance as advertised. Somewhat deceptively, it has WR there, but it shouldn't really because WR on a Casio signifies water resistant only 30 meters. But this one has 100. That is a piece of acrylic, just plastic covering the dial. It will scratch, but it can be buffed. And in the back is a Casio module 3556. I know this because Casio always puts the module number in a little box in the same position in every case back. You can easily look up the instruction manuals, download the PDF online therefore. Screw on, stainless steel, anti-allergenic therefore, 100 meters of water resistance therefore. Molded resin case, this one has the kind of two-tone look. That bezel has a slightly metallic effect. Paler grey silver colour, and it's a dull matte finish to the dark grey black majority of the case. Now 10-year battery and illuminator, those can be rubbed off. I'll leave a link in the top corner of the screen to a video where I modified an AE1200 a couple of years ago. It can be done, but only using the equipment I suggest. You can make a terrible mess of your watch if you try and use nail varnish remover, as I know some people have. 4 stainless steel pushers, all nice and easy to operate, but what do they do? Well, the one in the top right corner operates the illuminator that was advertised on the upper portion of the case. 2 big orange LEDs do a very good job of illuminating the entirety of the dial. Super legible after dark, this one. Now when the watch is displaying the home time as it is now, it's a rather large set of numerals, I would say, on the bottom third of the dial that shows the time. Above them, day of the week, month of the year and date of the month. Definitely larger, both of those lines, than on either the AE1200 or the AE1300. Bottom right button just sits it between 24-hour and AM PM time. Top left is adjust as usual. You can cycle through those. It also does summertime if you live somewhere in the world that has that 1 hour shift twice a year. Bottom left button is the modes. Now this is where it gets interesting. You see that countdown timer? This one has an almost identical operation sequence to the AE1300. This has the countdown timer feature rather than prioritizing world time. Now it says stopwatch here. You might think it's start, stop, reset. Let's see. Start, stop, but no, it keeps running. This is the referee's watch, just like the 1300. This will keep running and you can start and stop if you're running a play or something. For example, if you're timing a match, that's what this stopwatch does. It doesn't work in a standard stopwatch fashion. You can't time lapse therefore. If you want to reset it, you hold down that button. Next up is a timer. Similarly, this one cycles through 10, 12, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40 and 45. Those preset times represent halves or quarters in sporting events, up to a 45-minute half of football. Again, start and it will count down from there, and you're pressing the top corner button to reset it. Next up is interval training. This one is for the gym junkies. Hold that down and you can set no less than 9 different intervals. If you're doing 1 minute reps, 2 minute reps, 5 minute reps, etc., this will look after you there. You can adjust them all the way down to 1 hour reps if you are an absolute maniac. One other thing you can do here is you can have those reps run A to B, or you can have them running in an endless loop. So you can set up a 55-minute rep on an endless loop and truly murder yourself. One more push and you're into world time. So it does have that function, but not the quick access 4 time zone function like the 1200. Hong Kong here, Tokyo, Adelaide, and here I am home in Sydney at 3:19, etc, etc. One more flick, only a single alarm, not 5 alarms like you get in some Casios, and back to the home time. So the module is almost identical to the one in the 1300. Just the dial layout is different. The top third of the dial though is pretty much decorative. I mean, it all functions, but I'm not quite sure why you would be looking at that rather than looking at the far easier to read numerals beneath it. This one, the little circle in the top right here, counts up the minutes in circles up to 10 and then counts them back down again to 10. So here it is 22. We have 2 of those little bars activated. This one here counts up the blocks in seconds. Now watch this one, 30, so it adds another block. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then back down to 0. And this one is constantly ticking up in 10 seconds and then ticking down in 10 seconds. So 40, 1, 2, 3, etc, etc. Yeah, I don't think it's as invasive as those 3 circles on the 1300, but it occupies the top third of the dial for not a lot of functionality, put it that way. On wrist, it wears really nicely, identically to its 2 cousins. Plenty of presence considering a complete lack of weight, and the weight means it's so comfortable. You always get a decent fit with these Casio resin bands as well. There's plenty of holes, and big guys, you are well catered for here. I've got a 7-inch wrist, that's up to about 8.5-inch wrists, no problems at all. The legibility of the LCD screen does vary depending on the angle, but don't forget you do have those 2 enormous backlights to help you should you require it. And the fact that it has the same case and the same band as the 1200 and 1300 means all mod kits that fit the 12 and 13 will also fit this 16. This is sapphire crystal with an all metal case. It will swap over, no problems at all with the 1600 if I wanted it to. So if they're all the same size, the same shape, the same weight, and the same price, it just comes down to functions and aesthetics. If you want to emphasize the world time features and you prefer a standard stopwatch that does laps, go for the AE1200. If, however, this countdown style timer or interval timing is an advantage, then go for the 1300 or the 1600. It just comes down to looks. Personally, I prefer the way the 1600 looks over the 1300. I think I prefer more of the dial given over to the time, the date display. It's just easier to read, and I've never been a big fan of those three circles. I much prefer the colour and the look of the layout on this new watch. But of course, there's nothing to say you can only have one of these, so you should probably buy all three of them, like I did, and make me feel better about my life choices. So there you have it, yet another Casio that is all too easy to pick up after a few adult beverages on a Friday evening. And it's even easier if you already own a bunch of mod parts for your AE1200. It's watches like this that make the vast majority of luxury watches look ridiculous. If you like the WS1600, you will probably also like the AE1200 or the AE1300. Thanks for watching all the way to the end. I hope to see you again in a future video.